The bridge of the Coalition flagship Eternal Wing felt like a tomb. Commander Zixthar stood before the tactical display, his feathers pressed flat against his body in a gesture of deep stress. The holographic map showed the truth in cold blue light. 3,000 Coalition ships remained. 15,000 Vrakoth biovessels surrounded them in a tightening noose. How long can we hold? Admiral Corvus asked. The large warrior shifted his weight, his thick-scaled hide showing scars from 3 years of war. His species, the Draconeer, had never retreated from battle in their recorded history. Today might be the first time. Zixthar clicked his beak twice, calculating. 2 hours. Maybe 3 if we use the asteroid field for cover. And behind us? Corvus already knew the answer. 12 billion civilians on the Kelthera colonies. Evacuation would take 6 days. We don't have 6 hours. Science Officer Morell looked up from her station, her reptilian eyes wide with fear. She was young, barely into her second decade of service. Commander, the Vrakoth are moving into attack formation. They'll begin bombardment in 17 minutes. Zixthar had seen this pattern before. The Vrakoth didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They consumed. Every world they touched became a husk, stripped of all biological matter to fuel their endless swarm. 40% of known space had fallen in 3 years. Every species in the Coalition had lost at least one homeworld. All ships, defensive formation Theta 9, Zixthar commanded. His voice remained steady even as his heart raced. Prepare for full engagement. Transfer all non-essential power to shields and weapons. The other captains acknowledged. Zixthar saw their faces on the communication grid. Aventi like himself, Draconeer warriors, the crystalline Shardborn, the aquatic Tide Lords, the massive Stonebearers, the energy-based Lumens, and the insectoid Chitauri. 7 species that had put aside centuries of minor conflicts to face extinction together. They would die together too. Commander, Morell said quietly. Should I send the final distress call? Zixthar nodded. It was protocol, nothing more. A message shouted into the void that no one would answer in time. The nearest Coalition reinforcements were 2 weeks away. Even if someone heard them, what could they do? Morell's claws tapped across her console. The message transmitted on all frequencies in all languages, with their exact coordinates. A desperate prayer to an empty universe. 30 seconds passed. Then the communication console chimed. Morell's head snapped up. Commander, we have a response. Reinforcements? Corvus stepped forward, hope flickering in his eyes. I don't know, sir. The language database can't identify the origin. Wait, it's translating now. She pressed a control and a voice filled the bridge. Terran Defense Fleet en route. Estimated time of arrival, 14 minutes. Hold your position. Silence gripped the bridge. Zixthar felt his feathers rise in confusion. Terran, run that designation through the database. Morell worked quickly, her claws flying across the controls. Sir, I have it. Earth. Listed as a quarantined world. Pre-FTL civilization. Status shows they achieved radio communication approximately 200 years ago, but never developed faster than light travel. The Galactic Council classified them as a developing species and established a non-contact protocol. Then how did they respond to our distress call? Corvus demanded. How are they coming here in 14 minutes? Zixthar added. That system is 8 light-years away. No one had answers. The tactical display continued its grim countdown. The Vrakoth vessels moved closer, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as their communication network. They would attack in 12 minutes now. Orders, Commander? His weapons officer asked. Zixthar made his decision. We do what we came here to do. We hold this line. If these Terrans actually arrive, then perhaps we have a chance. If not, we die knowing we gave those civilians every possible second to live. The crew responded with affirmations. Whatever fear they felt, they buried it beneath duty. Zixthar had served with some of these officers for 20 years. He knew their families. He had attended their bonding ceremonies and celebrated the births of their offspring. Today he would watch them die. The Vrakoth opened fire at 11 minutes. Plasma bolts and bioacid sprays crossed the distance. Coalition shields flared bright as they absorbed the impacts. The Coalition returned fire with their own weapons. Particle beams, kinetic missiles, and fusion torpedoes. Ships on both sides began to die. Zixthar gripped the edge of his command station. The Eternal Wing shuddered as a Vrakoth cruiser exploded nearby, its death throes sending debris in all directions. A shard-borne destroyer fractured under sustained fire, its crystalline structure shattering into 1,000,000 glittering pieces. 800 ships lost, Morell reported, her voice shaking. 30% shield integrity remaining on most vessels. Time to Terran arrival? Zixthar asked. 3 minutes, sir. If they're actually coming. Corvus growled low in his chest. A Death World species. I read about Earth once. High gravity, dangerous predators, extreme weather. If they managed FTL, they might be warriors. Or they might arrive with exploration vessels, Morell countered. We don't know anything about them. The view screen showed the Vrakoth swarm pressing forward, utterly confident in their victory. They had won this fight 1,000 times before. Zixthar wondered if the Terrans knew what they were flying into. He wondered if their 14 minutes would matter at all. The countdown reached 0. Space tore open. The space in front of the Coalition fleet did something wrong. That was the only way Morell could describe it. Not the familiar ripple of warp drives or the bright flash of hyperspace gates. Space simply opened like a wound. And through those tears in reality came ships. 247 vessels emerged in perfect formation. The dimensional rifts closed behind them with a sound that registered on sensors as a low-frequency hum that made Morell's scales itch. She had never seen FTL technology like this. What kind of drive system is that? She whispered. The human ships were unlike anything in the Coalition database. Where most species built their vessels with smooth curves and flowing lines, these ships looked angry. Sharp angles dominated their design. Every surface seemed designed to deflect or destroy. Their hulls were dark, almost black, with minimal lighting. They looked like predators emerging from deep water. Zixthar studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The human fleet was tiny. Against the 15,000 Vrakoth vessels and what remained of the 3,000 Coalition ships, 247 seemed like a bad joke, sir. We're receiving a transmission, Morell said. The view screen changed. A human face appeared. The alien was smaller than Zixthar had expected, with pale brown skin and dark eyes that held an unsettling calmness. The human wore a dark blue uniform with insignia that meant nothing to the Coalition crew. This is Admiral Chen Akihara of the Terran Defense Fleet, commanding the TDFS Indomitable, the human said. Her voice was steady and professional. Coalition forces fall back to defensive position Echo 7. We'll handle this. Corvus made a sound of disbelief. They'll handle it. There are less than 300 of them. On the view screen, the Vrakoth swarm continued forward, completely ignoring the new arrivals. They had learned long ago that smaller fleets meant easier prey. The biovessels shifted formation, preparing to sweep around the humans and continue their assault on the Coalition. The human admiral didn't wait for a response from Zixthar. Her image disappeared from the screen. On the tactical display, the human fleet split apart with mechanical precision. They formed into 17 separate strike groups, each moving at speeds that made Morell check her sensors twice. Commander, those ships are accelerating at 12 Gs, she reported. Our vessels would crush their crews at that speed. Maybe they have better inertial dampeners, Corvus suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Or maybe humans are just tougher than they look, Zixthar murmured. He opened a channel to all Coalition ships. All vessels pull back as ordered. Give the Terrans room to engage. His captains hesitated. Retreat went against every instinct, especially when they were abandoning such a small allied force. But orders were orders. The Coalition fleet began moving backward, their shields still raised, weapons still hot. The Vrakoth saw the retreat and surged forward.
They had won.
In moments, they would break through and reach the colonies behind. 12 billion lives hung in the balance. The human fleet attacked, no declaration of war. No demands for surrender, no hesitation at all. The 17 strike groups opened fire simultaneously, and Morell's entire worldview shattered. The first weapons to fire were kinetic. Railguns, her sensors told her. But that simple word didn't capture what she witnessed. Solid metal slugs, each one the size of a ground vehicle, accelerated to 30% of light speed. They crossed the distance to the Vrakoth fleet in seconds. Shields meant nothing. The kinetic projectiles punched straight through the Vrakoth bioarmor like it was thin fabric. Ships exploded from the inside out, as the rounds transferred all their energy in microseconds. The vacuum of space filled with debris and frozen biological matter. Impossible, Corvus breathed. Those velocities should require reactors 10 times the size of their ships. Morel was already running calculations. Sir, if their power generation is that efficient, then there are other systems. She didn't finish. The implications were too vast. The second wave of human weapons launched. The sensors called them missiles, but these were nothing like coalition munitions. Each one moved with its own intelligent guidance system, dodging around debris and incoming Vrakoth fire with ease. When they reached their targets, they didn't explode conventionally. Fusion-pumped lasers, Myrell reported in awe. Each warhead creates a directed energy beam. Sir, the temperature readings these are like small stars. The beams lasted only a fraction of a second, but in that time they carved through Vrakoth vessels like surgical tools. The humans weren't just destroying ships. They were targeting specific points. Command nodes, power centers, weapons clusters. Every shot killed something critical. The Vrakoth swarm tried to respond. 15,000 ships turned their attention to the human fleet, pouring fire into the space where the Terran vessels danced. Bioacid sprays, plasma bolts, kinetic harpoons, and viral bombs all converged on the humans. Nothing touched them. The human point defense systems activated, and Myrell watched in disbelief as thousands of incoming projectiles simply ceased to exist. Laser grids tracked every threat. Gaussian cannons, smaller versions of the railguns, fired constantly in a defensive sphere around each ship. The humans had created a wall of metal and energy that nothing could penetrate. They predicted it, Myrell said suddenly. Look at their movements. Zixthar saw it too. The human ships weren't reacting to Vrakoth fire. They were already moving before the enemy weapons launched, positioning themselves in the perfect spots to avoid or intercept. Their combat computers were predicting Vrakoth actions seconds before they happened. How is that possible? Corvus demanded. Artificial intelligence, Zixthar guessed. More advanced than anything we've developed. The Vrakoth realized their mistake. 8,000 vessels broke formation and turned toward the human fleet with their full attention. If they could just reach these strange newcomers, their numerical advantage would win. They never got close. The humans shifted tactics smoothly. No panic, no disorder. They simply adapted. The strike groups reformed into a defensive wall and their firing rate doubled. Then tripled. Myrell lost count of the exploding Vrakoth ships. Her sensors struggled to keep up with the destruction. 40 seconds into the engagement, 3,000 Vrakoth vessels had been destroyed. At 60 seconds, the number reached 6,500. The Vrakoth hive mind, for the first time in 3 years, made a decision it had never made before. It ran. The remaining vessels turned and fled, engaging their own FTL drives in a desperate attempt to escape. The human fleet didn't pursue. They held formation, their dark ships now surrounded by the glowing debris of their enemies. The entire engagement had lasted 97 seconds. On the bridge of the Eternal Wing, no one spoke. They simply stared at their sensors, trying to process what they had witnessed. The Vrakoth, the unstoppable swarm that had consumed 40% of the galaxy, had just fled in terror from a human fleet 1/60th their size. Admiral Chen's face reappeared on the view screen. She looked exactly as calm as before, as if she had just completed a routine patrol rather than the most one-sided battle in recorded history. Coalition Command, this is Admiral Chen. Threat has been neutralized. Requesting permission to dock for alliance discussions. We have much to talk about. Myrell couldn't stop watching the battle recordings. She had reviewed them 17 times now, and each viewing revealed something new that terrified her. The precision, the efficiency, the complete absence of wasted movement or firepower. The humans fought like they had been doing this for centuries. Science Officer Myrell, report to Conference Room 1, the intercom announced. She saved her analysis and made her way through the corridors of the Eternal Wing. Other crew members moved aside as she passed, all of them wearing the same expression of shock. The entire fleet was still processing what they had witnessed. Some of the Draconeer warriors she passed looked shaken, and nothing shook a Draconeer. The conference room held the coalition leadership. Commander Zixthar stood at the head of the table, his feathers still pressed flat. Admiral Corvus was there, along with the captains of the other species' flagships, and at the far end of the table sat 3 humans. Admiral Chen Akihara sat in the center, flanked by 2 officers. One was a tall man with dark skin and sharp eyes who introduced himself as Captain Marcus Webb. The other was a shorter woman with East Asian features named Lieutenant Park Jin-sun. All three wore the same dark blue uniforms, and all three carried themselves with the relaxed confidence of apex predators. Myrelle took her seat and tried not to stare. The humans were smaller than most species present. Chen barely reached Zixthar's chest height. They looked fragile with their soft skin and lack of natural armor or weapons. Yet everyone in the room knew the truth. These fragile-looking beings had just accomplished something impossible. The final count is verified, Zixthar said. 11,400 Vrakoth vessels destroyed. 0 human casualties. 0 human ships damaged. He looked at Chen. Admiral, I have been fighting for 3 years. I have studied every battle, every engagement. What I witnessed today should not be possible. Chen nodded. I understand your confusion. May I be direct? Please. Your tactics are defensive. Your technology prioritizes shields and endurance. You fight wars expecting them to last years, and you build your ships accordingly. Chen leaned forward. Humans fight differently. We learned long ago that the best defense is overwhelming offense. We don't block attacks. We destroy threats before they can attack, Corvus growled. Your railguns. They penetrate our shields like they don't exist. Because shields waste energy, Lieutenant Park said. Her voice was crisp and technical. You're trying to absorb or deflect incoming fire. We calculated it's more efficient to simply not get hit, and to make sure the enemy can't shoot back. Your point defense is perfect, Myrelle said quietly. Our sensors show your combat computers predicting Vrakoth actions 4 to 7 seconds in advance. Park smiled slightly. Pattern recognition. The Vrakoth are a hive mind. They're efficient, but they fall into predictable patterns. Our AI analyzed 3 years of your battle data during our journey here. By the time we arrived, we knew exactly how they would respond to any given situation. 3 years of data analyzed during a 14-minute flight? Myrelle's tail twitched in disbelief. Our quantum computers process information somewhat faster than yours, Park admitted. Captain Webb spoke for the first time, his voice deep and measured. Admiral Chen, perhaps we should explain the full situation. Chen nodded. You're all wondering how a pre-FTL species suddenly appeared with advanced technology and military doctrine. The truth is, we're not pre-FTL. We haven't been for 127 years. The conference room erupted in confusion. Zixthar held up a wing for silence. But the Galactic Council's monitoring stations show Earth as pre-FTL. We would have detected your development. You detected what we wanted you to detect, Chen said calmly. When we received your FTL primer signal, we made a choice. We could announce ourselves and join your community. Or we could wait, observe, and prepare. Prepare for what? Corvus demanded. For the worst. Chen's expression hardened. Admiral, I'm going to share something about human history. It won't be pleasant. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared above the table. Myrelle watched scenes of destruction, weapons of impossible power, and countless dead. Human dead. The humans had fought each other. For our entire recorded history, humans have been at war, Chen explained. Not with aliens. With ourselves. Nation against nation. Ideology against ideology. We have killed each other with every weapon we could invent, from sharpened stones to nuclear bombs. The room went silent. The concept was almost incomprehensible. War between members of the same species happened, but rarely and usually over resources. These humans had made it their defining characteristic. When we detected your FTL signals, Chen continued, we had to ask ourselves a question. What if the galaxy is hostile? What if we announce ourselves and encounter a species that wants to destroy us? We had just finished our last global war, nearly 1 billion dead. We decided we would never be that vulnerable again. So you prepared, Zixthar said slowly. For 127 years. We built in secret. We developed weapons. We created the defense fleet. We assumed the worst-case scenario and prepared for it. Chen gestured to the display. Every human ship carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Not because we want to, because we never want to be helpless again. Myrelle felt cold. The humans hadn't arrived as saviors. They had arrived as survivors who had armed themselves against a hostile universe. But you came when we called, Zixthar said. Why? Chen's expression softened. Because when we finally detected your communications and learned there was a galactic community, we monitored your broadcasts. We learned your languages. We watched your culture, and we saw that most species in this galaxy are peaceful. You cooperate. You trade. You don't massacre each other over territory or ideology. She stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the debris field. When we heard your distress call, there was a debate on Earth. Some said we should stay hidden. Others said this was our chance to join the galaxy as friends rather than strangers. She turned back. I argued that it didn't matter. We had heard people crying for help. We don't leave people to die. That's not who we are. Your weapons suggest otherwise, Corvus said, though his tone was more curious than accusatory. Our weapons exist so we never have to use them on innocents, Captain Webb said. We spent a century preparing for hostile aliens. Instead, we found victims who needed help. That doesn't make our weapons less necessary. It just means we finally know who to point them at. Chen returned to her seat. The Vrakath are a threat to all organic life. They won't stop with your territories. Eventually, they'll reach Earth. So we came here for 2 reasons, to help you and to help ourselves. You said you have 247 ships here, Zixthar said carefully. Is that your full fleet? Park and Webb both smiled at that. Chen's expression didn't change. No, Commander. This is an expeditionary force. Earth currently maintains 40 full battle fleets, each one containing between 200 and 300 vessels depending on class composition. Myrelle did the math in her head and felt dizzy. The humans had 10,000 warships, each one apparently as powerful as what they had just witnessed. We also have defensive installations around Earth, Mars, and Jupiter, along with 3 deep space fortress stations. Chen added, We've been very busy for the last century. Corvus leaned back in his chair, his scales rasping against metal. You prepared for war with the entire galaxy? Yes. And now you want to save it instead? Yes. Chen folded her hands on the table. Gentlemen, ladies, and honored beings of all designations, humanity would like to propose a military alliance. We will commit forces to defend coalition territories and eliminate the Vrakath threat. In exchange, we ask for diplomatic recognition, trade agreements, and cultural exchange. We've been alone for a very long time. We'd like to stop being alone. Zixthar looked at his fellow officers. He saw fear in some eyes, hope in others. The humans were offering salvation, but they were also revealing that they could destroy the coalition as easily as they had destroyed the Vrakath. It was an offer of friendship backed by overwhelming force. We need to discuss this, Zixthar said finally. Of course. Chen stood. We'll return to our ships. Take your time. The Vrakath won't be back for a while. As the humans left, Myrelle watched them go. They walked like soldiers, alert and controlled. She thought about their history of war and their weapons that could crack planets. She thought about how they had chosen to help instead of conquer. The galaxy had just changed forever. She hoped it was for the better. The alliance was formed 3 days later. Zixthar signed the document with his own talon, making it official. The coalition would open its territories to human vessels and establish formal diplomatic relations. In return, the Terran Defense Fleet would provide military support against the Vrakath threat. What they didn't expect was how quickly the humans would move. 2 weeks after the first contact, Admiral Chen arrived at Coalition headquarters with a proposal. She brought tactical data, strategic analysis, and a complete battle plan. Myrelle attended the briefing as the Coalition's chief science advisor, and she watched as Chen transformed the entire military doctrine of 7 species. The Vrakath have a staging ground here, Chen said, pointing to a star system deep in contested space. Long-range reconnaissance shows approximately 40,000 vessels gathering for a major push. They're preparing to attack the Shardborn home systems. The Shardborn Admiral, a crystalline being named Resonance of Thunder, flickered with agitation. We have detected this buildup. Our projections show they will attack in 2 months. We are evacuating what we can. You don't need to evacuate, Chen said simply. We're going to destroy that fleet. The conference room fell silent. Corvus leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. 40,000 ships, Admiral Chen. Even with your technology, that's a different scale than what we faced at Kelthera. Which is why we're not going alone. Chen activated another display. We're proposing a joint operation. 20 human vessels, 200 coalition ships. We'll teach you our tactics while we fight. You want us to attack 40,000 Vrakath with 220 ships? Zixthar felt his feathers rise. That's suicide. It's mathematics, Lieutenant Park said. She pulled up combat simulations. The Vrakath win through numbers and persistence. But they have weaknesses. They cluster around command nodes. They follow predictable attack patterns. They rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical flexibility. Captain Webb continued the explanation. We've analyzed every Vrakoth engagement in your records. They've never faced an enemy that strikes hard and fast at critical points. They're used to grinding battles where they can reinforce and adapt. We won't give them that chance. Chen pulled up a tactical map. The staging ground is in the Broken Reaches system. 4 rocky planets, 1 gas giant, and a debris field from an old supernova. Terrible defensive position for the Vrakoth. They're spread across multiple orbital zones. That's intentional, Myrell said, understanding dawning. They spread out so a single attack can't destroy them all at once. Exactly. Which means we won't make a single attack. Chen highlighted different areas of the system. We'll hit them with 7 simultaneous strikes at their command clusters. We've identified the primary hive mind control nodes in the fleet. Kill those, and the rest become confused and uncoordinated. You can identify individual command vessels in a fleet of 40,000? Resonance of Thunder's light pulsed with disbelief. Park nodded. Their bioships emit specific electromagnetic signatures when they're processing hive mind directives. It's subtle, but our sensors can detect it. We've already identified 17 command nodes in the staging ground. 17 targets, Webb said. 7 human strike groups, 3 ships each. We hit all 17 nodes within the first minute. The coalition fleet comes in behind us and exploits the chaos. Zixthar studied the plan. It was insane. It was also brilliant. You're offering to train coalition forces in your tactics during an actual battle. Best way to learn is by doing, Chen agreed. We'll coordinate all movements, share our sensor data in real time, and guide your vessels through the engagement. By the end, your captains will understand how we fight. Corvus slammed his fist on the table. I like it. When do we leave? 48 hours. We need time to integrate our communication systems with yours. The preparations moved with human efficiency. Myrell found herself aboard the Indomitable, working with Lieutenant Park to link coalition computers with Terran systems. The technology gap was staggering. Human quantum processors operated at speeds that made coalition computers look ancient. How did you advance so quickly? Myrell asked as they worked. You had no one to trade with. No uplifted technology. You did all of this alone. Park paused, considering her answer. Necessity, competition. When you're fighting each other, you innovate or you die. Every human nation pushed technology forward because they had to stay ahead of their enemies. It was wasteful and terrible, but it made us very good at advancement. Do you regret it? Your violent history? Every day, Park said quietly. But I can't change the past. None of us can. We can only use what we learned to build something better. She smiled sadly. We turned our weapons of war into tools of protection. That has to count for something. The combined fleet departed on schedule, 20 human vessels, sleek and dark, accompanied by 200 coalition ships. Zixthar commanded the coalition wing from the Eternal Wing, while Chen coordinated overall strategy from the Indomitable. The journey to the Broken Reaches took 6 hours using human slip space technology. The coalition ships traveled in human-generated wormholes, piggybacking on Terran FTL drives. It was faster than any method the coalition possessed. When they emerged in the system, they found exactly what Chen had predicted. 40,000 Vrakoth bioships orbiting in loose clusters. The hive mind hadn't detected them yet. The humans had some kind of stealth technology that made their fleet nearly invisible. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. The human's voice came through clearly on every bridge. Coalition forces, watch your tactical displays. We're highlighting targets and approach vectors. Follow our lead, trust your instincts. And remember, hit hard and hit fast. The 7 human strike groups split off, each one moving toward a different orbital zone. The coalition fleet divided into 7 supporting wings, each one trailing behind a human group. Strike Group 7, you're with us. Captain Webb's voice came through to Zixthar's fleet. We're taking the command cluster near the gas giant. 28 vessels, heavily defended. We'll eliminate the node. You mop up the confusion. Zixthar watched as Webb's 3 ships accelerated to impossible speeds. His own vessels followed as best they could, though they were far slower. The humans moved like dancers, weaving through space with perfect coordination. The Vrakoth detected them. Alarms must have rippled through the hive mind. 40,000 ships began moving, turning to face the threat. The humans struck first. All 7 strike groups opened fire simultaneously. Railgun rounds and fusion-pumped laser missiles crossed the system at relativistic speeds. The 17 command nodes exploded within seconds of each other. The effect was immediate. The Vrakoth fleet shuddered like a living thing. Ships crashed into each other as their perfect coordination vanished. Individual vessels began firing in random directions, no longer receiving clear instructions from the hive mind. Coalition forces, engage at will, Chen commanded. Target the confused vessels. Don't let them reorganize. Zixthar gave the order and his fleet surged forward. For the first time in 3 years, they weren't fighting defensively. They were attacking, exploiting weakness, striking at vulnerable targets. The humans had taught them something profound. War wasn't about endurance. It was about breaking the enemy's ability to fight back. The battle lasted 6 hours. Not because the Vrakoth were strong, but because there were so many of them to eliminate. The coalition forces learned quickly, adapting to the human style of warfare. Strike hard, move fast. Never give the enemy time to adapt. When the last Vrakoth vessel fell, the coalition fleet had lost 37 ships. Tragic losses, but nothing compared to what they had expected. The humans had lost nothing. All ships, this is Chen. The admiral's voice carried satisfaction. Excellent work. Coalition forces, you fought well. Your tactical adaptation was impressive. On the bridge of the Eternal Wing, Zixthar looked at his exhausted crew. They were staring at their displays in wonder. They had just helped destroy 40,000 enemy vessels with minimal losses. It seemed impossible, but they had learned. The humans had taught them that sometimes the best way to protect life was to be very, very good at taking it from those who threatened peace. Myrelle approached Zixthar, her tablet showing analysis data. Commander, I've been studying human battle doctrine. I think I understand them now. Explain. They're not warriors. They're survivors who became protectors. They know how to fight because they had to learn, and now they're teaching us the same lessons but without making us suffer through centuries of self-destruction first. She looked out at the human ships, dark and deadly against the stars. They're giving us their hard-won knowledge. That's a gift more valuable than any technology. Zixthar nodded slowly. The humans had arrived like angels of death, destroying the coalition's enemies in seconds. But they had stayed as teachers, showing 7 species how to defend themselves. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in 3 years, Zixthar felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. 6 months after first contact, Myrelle sat in what humans called a bar aboard the coalition station orbiting Sanctuary Prime. The establishment had become popular among both species, a place where warriors from 7 worlds mixed with humans from Earth. She held a glass of something the bartender called whiskey, though she hadn't dared taste it yet. Human alcohol was notoriously strong. Across the table, Lieutenant Park nursed her own drink and reviewed data on a tablet. They had been working together for months now, and Myrelle had learned that the human woman never stopped analyzing. The Joint Academy opens next month, Park said. 3,000 students from all coalition species. They'll learn Terran tactical doctrine, engineering principles, and combat theory. The Terran doctrine, Myrelle said, testing the phrase. It had become common terminology. The coalition military was being rebuilt from the ground up using human principles. It still feels strange. 6 months ago, we had never heard of humans. Now we're teaching their methods to every cadet. Is that a complaint? Park asked with a slight smile. An observation. Myrelle finally took a sip of the whiskey and immediately regretted it. Her eyes watered. How do you drink this poison? Practice. Park's smile widened. My grandfather made moonshine during the resource wars. This is actually mild. They had shared many such evenings over the past months. Park teaching Myrelle about human culture, and Myrelle explaining the intricacies of coalition society. The cultural exchange went both ways, though the humans seemed endlessly curious about alien civilizations. The door opened and Admiral Chen entered, followed by Commander Zixthar and Admiral Corvus. The 3 commanders had become a familiar sight together, planning the ongoing campaign against the Vrakoth. Mind if we join? Chen asked. Please, Myrelle said, gesturing to the empty seats. Chen sat down with the easy grace Myrelle had come to associate with humans. They moved like predators even in casual settings. Relaxed but always aware. Corvus ordered something called beer, while Zixthar requested a venti honey wine. I received the latest reports from the front, Chen said, though her tone was casual rather than official. The coalition fleets are performing exceptionally well. The Vrakoth are losing territory for the first time since the war began. They're retreating to their core systems, Corvus rumbled. 3 months ago, that would have been impossible. Now we're pushing them back. Zixthar clicked his beak thoughtfully. The tactical training helped, but it's more than that. My officers tell me they think differently now. They don't see battles as contests of endurance. They see weak points, opportunities, decisive moments. You're thinking like humans, Park said. For better or worse. Definitely for better, Zixthar replied. My daughter will grow up in a galaxy where the Vrakoth are not an existential threat. That's worth learning new tactics. A group of human soldiers entered the bar, laughing among themselves. They nodded respectfully to Chen and found a corner table. Myrelle watched them, still fascinated by human behavior. They seemed so casual about violence. They joked and drank as if they hadn't spent the morning destroying enemy vessels. Does it bother you? She asked suddenly. The killing? You're all so calm about it. The table fell silent. Chen set down her glass and met Myrelle's eyes. Every day. Every single day it bothers me. But we learned a long time ago that if you let the horror paralyze you, you can't protect the people who need protection. We compartmentalize, Park added quietly. We laugh and drink because if we didn't, we'd break. The killing is necessary, but we don't have to enjoy it. We just have to be good at it. Corvus nodded slowly. I think I understand humans better now. You're not warriors. You're soldiers. There's a difference. What difference? Myrelle asked. Warriors seek glory in battle. Soldiers do what must be done and hope for peace. The Draconeer Admiral looked at his drink. My species has always been warriors. We valued honor in combat. Humans taught me that sometimes the most honorable thing is to end the fight as quickly as possible. The conversation shifted to lighter topics. Chen told stories about Earth, about cities and oceans and mountains. Zixthar shared tales of Aventi migration festivals. They were building friendship, slowly and carefully, between species that had never known each other existed. A communication alert interrupted them. Chen checked her device and frowned. Interesting. We're receiving a transmission. Source is Vrakoth. Everyone went quiet. The Vrakoth had never communicated before. They consumed and moved on. They were a force of nature, not a civilization that talked. Chen activated a holographic display. A face appeared, though calling it a face was generous. The Vrakoth had insectoid features, compound eyes, and mandibles that clicked as it spoke. What are you? The voice was strange, layered, as if many beings spoke simultaneously. The hive mind itself was addressing them. Chen stood, her posture straightening into military formality. I am Admiral Chen Akihara of the Terran Defense Fleet. We are humans. We have consumed 1,000 species. None fought as you fight, none adapted as you adapt, none killed as efficiently as you kill. The Vrakoth paused. You are like us. You are death that moves. No, Chen said firmly. We are nothing like you. You consume because it's your nature. We fight because others need protection. There's a fundamental difference. You will destroy us. We recognize this now. Your tactics spread. Your doctrine changes the equation. We cannot win. Corvus leaned forward. Then surrender. Stop attacking. Return to your home systems. We cannot. We must consume to survive. Our biology demands it. Myrelle felt a chill. The Vrakoth weren't evil. They were just following their nature, as inevitable as gravity. And humanity had become the force that would stop them. Chen's expression hardened. Then we will contain you. We'll establish a perimeter around your core systems. You can have that space, but if you cross the boundary, we will destroy every ship that does. You can survive in your territory. You just can't expand anymore. You would grant us mercy? We would grant you the chance to live within limits. Maybe someday you'll find another way to survive. Until then, you stay in your box. The Vrakoth was silent for a long moment. We accept these terms, but know this, humans. We recognize what you are. You are the universe's answer to threats like us. You exist to balance expansion with containment. You are the guardians, whether you accept that role or not. The transmission ended. Chen sat down slowly, her hands shaking slightly. Myrelle realized the Admiral was not as calm as she appeared. A cage, Zixthar said softly. You're going to build a cage around an entire species. A big cage, Chen replied. 12 star systems. Enough resources to sustain them. But yes, a cage. And if they break out, then we do what we've always done. We stop them. Park spoke up, her voice thoughtful. The Vrakoth called us guardians. Maybe they're right. We spent so long preparing to defend ourselves that we became good at defending others. There are worse fates, Corvus said, though I pity any species that tests your patience. The mood in the bar shifted. The weight of responsibility settled over them all. The humans had arrived as saviors, and now they were becoming the galaxy's protectors. It was a role they had never sought, but seemed uniquely suited for. Myrelle ordered another whiskey, determined to build up her tolerance. She had been researching human culture extensively, and had found something interesting. A quote from an old Earth leader: "Speak softly and carry a big stick." The humans had certainly brought a big stick, and they were teaching the entire coalition how to use it. 3 weeks later, Myrelle attended the opening ceremony of the Terran Coalition Military Academy. Thousands of young beings from dozens of species gathered to learn from humanity's hard-won lessons. Chen gave a speech about responsibility and restraint, about power used for protection rather than conquest. Myrelle watched the graduates-to-be, their eyes bright with determination. They would learn to fight like humans, to think like humans, to protect like humans. The next generation of coalition military would be transformed by human doctrine. The Vrakoth remained in their designated systems, contained by a joint human coalition fleet. Ships patrolled the borders constantly. There had been 2 attempted breakouts. Both were stopped in minutes. The Vrakoth learned quickly that the fence around them was real. Myrelle eventually published her research on human civilization. The paper was titled, "Survivors Who Became Guardians: Understanding Terran Military Philosophy." It became required reading at the Academy. She had tried to capture what made humans different. They were not naturally violent, she wrote. They were naturally protective. Their violence came from their need to defend their own, and once they considered you their own, they would move heaven and earth to keep you safe. She ended the paper with that quote about speaking softly and carrying a big stick. It seemed to sum up humanity perfectly. They could be your best friend or your worst nightmare. The choice was yours. That evening, Myrelle found herself back at the bar with Park. They had become friends, an odd pair perhaps, but genuine in their mutual respect. "Your people changed everything," Myrelle said. "The galaxy changed us too," Park replied. "We came here prepared for enemies. We found friends instead. That's worth more than any weapon." They raised their glasses in a toast. To friendship, to peace. To humans and aliens learning to walk the same path. To the strange and wonderful future they were building together. Outside the station, human ships patrolled alongside coalition vessels. Dark and deadly, yes, but also protective and vigilant. The guardians of a galaxy that had finally found its protectors, and in the darkness between stars the Vrakoth remained in their cage. A reminder that sometimes mercy means drawing a line and having the strength to enforce it. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had made sure of that. And somehow, against all odds, it had changed for the better. The large screen at NASA's mission control showed a vessel unlike anything humans had ever built. It moved with impossible grace, defying known physics as it decelerated into Earth's orbit. Everyone in the room held their breath. After decades of searching the stars and sending signals into the void, someone had finally answered. Dr. Alan Pierce stood at the back of the room, his fingers nervously tapping against his coffee mug. As chief xenobiologist for NASA's Extraterrestrial Intelligence Division, he had prepared his entire career for this moment. Yet nothing felt real. The aliens, actual aliens, would land in less than an hour. "They're requesting coordinates for landing," said a young technician, her voice shaking slightly. "They're speaking perfect English." "That's impossible," muttered Alan. "How could they know our language?" The room fell silent as a message appeared on screen. "Greetings, Earth. We come in peace as representatives of the Galactic Confederation. Please provide suitable landing coordinates." 6 hours later, Alan stood on a hastily prepared landing pad at Edwards Air Force Base. Beside him, Captain Lisa Morales scanned the sky with narrowed eyes. The former Air Force pilot had been appointed head of Earth's diplomatic security team just 3 days ago, when the alien vessel first appeared on deep space monitoring systems. "I don't like this," Lisa said quietly. "They're too casual about the whole thing. First contact should be a big deal, even for an advanced civilization." Alan nodded. "Notice they sent a small ship, too, not their main vessel. Like they're not worried about us at all," Lisa agreed. The ship that descended from the clouds was indeed much smaller than the one they had observed in orbit. It was roughly the size of a city bus, with a sleek silver exterior that seemed to shift colors as it moved. It made almost no sound as it landed, just a soft hum that faded quickly. A panel slid open on the side of the craft. 3 figures emerged. They were humanoid, but clearly not human, taller and thinner, with skin that had a faint bluish tint. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, and their fingers had one too many joints. They wore simple gray jumpsuits with no visible weapons or protective gear. "That's odd," Alan whispered. "No environmental protection. No quarantine protocols. They're not afraid of our germs," Lisa replied. "Or us." The tallest of the 3 aliens stepped forward, raising a 4-fingered hand in greeting. "I am Ambassador Zixtal of the Galactic Confederation. We are pleased to finally make official contact with Earth." "Finally?" Alan asked before he could stop himself. The alien's expression shifted into what might have been a smile. "Yes, finally. Your world has been on our monitoring list for some time." President Rivera stepped forward from the group of human representatives. "On behalf of all nations of Earth, we welcome you. We have many questions." "As expected," said Ambassador Zixtal. "And we have brought answers, along with an official welcome packet." One of the other aliens approached, carrying a small device that projected a holographic document in midair. The text was in several languages, with English prominently displayed. "This is your official classification and welcome to the interstellar community," the ambassador explained. "Earth is hereby recognized as a Class 4 low-threat environment." A murmur ran through the human delegation. Lisa's posture stiffened. "Low threat?" she repeated. "What exactly does that mean?" The ambassador blinked slowly. "It is a standard classification. It simply means your species poses minimal risk to Confederation members and interests. With all due respect," Lisa said, "humans have developed nuclear weapons, advanced military technology." The ambassador made a sound that might have been laughter. "Captain Morales, we have monitored your military capabilities. They are quaint." President Rivera placed a calming hand on Lisa's arm before she could respond. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion more privately. We've prepared facilities for your delegation." Later, in a conference room inside the base, Alan studied the classification document more carefully. The aliens had provided tablets with access to a simplified version of what they called the Confederation Knowledge Base. "I don't understand," Alan said, looking up at Ambassador Zixtal. "These threat classifications seem to be based on technological development, but there are species listed here with less advanced technology than ours classified as higher threats." "Threat assessment is complex," the ambassador replied. "Technology is merely one factor." Lisa, who had been silently fuming since the landing, finally spoke up. "So, what makes us low threat exactly? Our weapons?" "Your weapons are not particularly concerning," said one of the other aliens who had introduced himself as Science Officer Krell. "They are destructive but limited in range." "But we could develop better ones," Lisa pushed. "Perhaps," Ambassador Zixtal said with that strange, not-quite smile again. "But weapon development is not the primary concern in threat assessment." Alan noticed something strange in the document, a hidden data packet embedded in the file structure. Years of working with complex scientific data sets had trained his eye to spot patterns others might miss. He carefully avoided drawing attention to his discovery as he continued scrolling through the official text. "It says here, Earth has been under observation for centuries?" Alan looked up in surprise. "Correct," the ambassador confirmed. "We maintain observation posts for all developing worlds." "Where?" Lisa demanded. "We've never detected any alien presence." The aliens exchanged glances. "Your detection capabilities are still developing," Ambassador Zixtal said diplomatically. That night, alone in his temporary office, Alan extracted the hidden data packet from the classification document. What he found made his blood run cold. Earth hadn't just been under observation for centuries. According to these records, the Galactic Confederation had been monitoring Earth for over 50,000 years. And more disturbing still, Earth wasn't classified as a developing world at all. In the hidden files, Earth was designated as Special Containment Site 3197. Alan's phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. Found something strange. Meet me at the south entrance in 20 minutes. Tell no one. When Alan arrived, he found Lisa waiting with Sam Tucker, a computer specialist known for his brilliant but eccentric approaches to data analysis. The aliens aren't telling us everything, Lisa said without preamble. Sam found communication, signals between their ship and somewhere in the Arctic. I think we're asking the wrong questions, Alan said, showing them what he'd discovered. They didn't come here to welcome us to the galactic community. They came here to check on something. They're containing what? Sam asked, pushing his glasses up his nose. Alan shook his head. I don't know, but I think we need to find out what's in the Arctic. As they spoke, none of them noticed the small drone hovering silently in the darkness above them, its sensors, recording everything they said. Inside the alien vessel, Officer Krell watched the humans with growing concern. They've discovered the hidden classification, he reported to Ambassador Zixtal. Ahead of schedule. The ambassador nodded slowly. It was inevitable. Their pattern recognition abilities are why they were chosen in the first place. Should we stop them? No, the ambassador said, looking at the live feed of the three humans talking urgently in the shadows. Let them proceed. If the containment is truly weakening as we fear, we may need their help. After all, that's what they were designed for. Morning came too quickly. Alan had barely slept, his mind racing with questions about the hidden classification. He met Lisa and Sam in a small conference room they had secured for private discussions. The walls had been swept for listening devices, and Sam had set up a signal jammer just to be safe. We need to know more about this special containment site designation, Lisa said, pacing the room. And what exactly are they containing? Sam typed furiously on his laptop. I've been digging through the data Alan extracted. There are references to something called an awakening cycle occurring every few thousand years. The aliens seem concerned about something in the Arctic, Alan said. But why hide this from us? Why the pretense of diplomatic first contact? Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Lisa immediately reached for her sidearm, then forced herself to relax. She nodded to Sam, who disabled the jammer before she opened the door. Officer Krell stood in the hallway, alone and without the translator device the aliens typically carried. May I enter? He asked in slightly accented English. Lisa hesitated, then stepped aside. How did you find us? Your species is not difficult to track, Krell said, his large eyes blinking slowly. Your security measures are inadequate. Why are you here? Alan asked. Krell looked at each of them in turn. You have questions. Some of them, I may answer. Sam closed his laptop. What's in the Arctic? Direct, Krell said, almost approvingly. It is a monitoring station, one of several on your planet, but the oldest and most important. Monitoring what? Lisa pressed. That is complicated. Krell seemed to choose his words carefully. Ambassador Zixtal would not approve of this. Conversation, but I believe you deserve some truth. Your planet contains something of great importance to the Galactic Confederation. Alan leaned forward. The containment site designation? What are you containing here? Krell's expression was impossible to read, but his posture stiffened. I cannot answer that directly, but I can tell you that your species was selected for its unique qualities. Selected? Lisa's voice hardened. What does that mean? You asked earlier why Earth is classified as low threat, Krell said, changing the subject. The classification is not a judgment of your military capabilities, though they are indeed primitive by our standards. Then what is it based on? Alan asked. Threat classifications primarily assess a species' likelihood to disrupt the greater cosmic order, Krell explained. Species that develop faster than light travel too early, for instance, often cause significant disruptions, Sam snorted. So we're low threat because we're too stupid to leave our own solar system? Not stupid, Krell corrected. Your technological progress follows a necessary pattern. But there is another factor in your classification. Most species in the Confederation consider direct physical combat to be primitively barbaric. Lisa's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Your species has an unusual fixation on physical violence, Krell said. Most advanced species develop past this stage, relying on technology rather than physical force. Your continued emphasis on hand-to-hand, combat training, physical strength, and battlefield tactics is considered archaic. You're saying we're not a threat because we still punch each other? Lisa asked incredulously. I am saying that what you consider strengths, the Confederation, largely considers evolutionary dead ends, Krell replied. But there is more to it than that. Alan was about to ask another question when alarms began blaring throughout the base. Krell's communication device emitted a series of rapid tones. I must go, he said, moving quickly toward the door. The main vessel has detected unusual activity at the Arctic station. Wait, Alan called after him. What's happening? Krell paused at the door, something that should not be possible for another 1,000 years. With that cryptic statement, he was gone. The three humans exchanged glances. We need to get to the Arctic, Lisa said firmly. 2 days later, they were on a military transport plane heading north. Lisa had pulled strings and called in favors to get them aboard a scientific research mission to investigate unusual electromagnetic readings near the North Pole. Dr. Olivia Grant, an Arctic research specialist, had joined their impromptu team, along with Commander John Ellis, who was officially in charge of the mission. These readings make no sense, Olivia said, looking over the data on her tablet. It's like there's a power source under the ice that's been there for, well, longer than humans have had technology. Commander Ellis frowned at the radar display. There's something else strange. The ice shelf configuration in this area doesn't match any of our previous surveys. It's like the geography itself has shifted. The plane landed on a temporary runway, established on the ice. The team quickly set up their base camp and prepared their equipment for exploration. The alien delegation had been suspiciously quiet about the expedition, neither helping nor hindering their efforts. They're watching us, Lisa said, looking up at the clear Arctic sky, waiting to see what we do. Alan checked the readings on his scanner. The signal is strongest about 2 kilometers north of here. We should be able to reach it in a few hours. The journey across the ice was difficult but uneventful. As they approached the coordinates, however, the team's equipment began to malfunction. Something's interfering with our sensors, Sam said, hitting his tablet in frustration. Look there, Olivia pointed ahead. Does that ice formation look natural to you? Rising from the flat white landscape was a perfect dome of ice, roughly 100 meters in diameter. Its surface was smooth, almost polished. Definitely not natural, Commander Ellis confirmed. As they approached the dome, Alan's scanner picked up a faint energy signature. There's a pattern to the energy fluctuations. It's almost like a heartbeat. They circled the structure, looking for an entrance. Eventually, Sam discovered a section of the dome that responded to their presence. As he approached, the ice simply vanished, revealing a dark tunnel leading downward. It recognized us, Sam whispered. It was waiting for humans. The tunnel led deep beneath the ice, eventually opening into a vast chamber that couldn't possibly have been built by human hands. The walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. At the center of the chamber stood a pillar of blue light that stretched from floor to ceiling. What is this place? Olivia breathed. Alan approached one of the walls, studying the changing symbols. It's old. Millions of years old, at least. Commander Ellis pointed to a section of the wall where the symbols appeared to form a recognizable pattern. Is that the solar system? As they watched, the symbols rearranged themselves into a clear depiction of Earth, with a bright point pulsing at its core. It's monitoring something inside the Earth, Alan realized. Something deep within the planet itself. Lisa touched her hand to the wall, and immediately the entire chamber hummed with energy. The blue pillar brightened, and within it appeared a holographic image of Earth's internal structure, from crust to core. But at the very center, Where the inner core should be was something else, something that pulsed and shifted like a living thing. "Oh my God," Olivia whispered. "What is that?" Before anyone could respond, a new voice spoke from behind them. "That is why we are here. That is what your species was chosen to contain." They turned to find Ambassador Zix standing in the entrance to the chamber, flanked by Officer Krell and several other aliens they hadn't met before. "Contain?" Alan repeated. "What exactly is that thing?" The ambassador's expression was grim. "Something ancient, something that should not be awake for another 1,000 years, and yet," added Krell, "it is beginning to stir." The chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of the ancient technology surrounding them. Alan stared at the holographic image of Earth's core, trying to make sense of the shifting, almost living thing displayed within it. "What exactly is that?" he asked, pointing to the pulsing mass at the center of the hologram. Ambassador Zixtal approached the pillar of light. "It has many names across the galaxy. Some call it the Devourer, others the Sleeper. My people know it as the Void Entity." "That doesn't answer the question," Lisa said sharply. "What is it?" "It is a cosmic being," Officer Krell explained. "One of several that existed before galaxies formed. Most were destroyed or dispersed during the early formation of the universe, but a few survived." Olivia stepped closer to the hologram. "And one is inside our planet?" "Not by accident," the ambassador said. "It was imprisoned here long ago by a species that predates even the Confederation." Commander Ellis crossed his arms. "And what does this have to do with humans being classified as low threat?" The ambassador's large eyes blinked slowly. "Everything." Krell moved to a panel on the wall and pressed a sequence of symbols. The chamber darkened and new images appeared in the holographic display. They showed early primates on the African savanna, then a series of rapid evolutionary changes. "Your species did not evolve naturally," Krell said. "You were engineered." "Engineered?" Sam repeated. "By who?" "By the same species that imprisoned the entity," the ambassador replied. "They needed guardians for their prison." Alan felt cold despite the regulated temperature of the chamber. "You're saying humans were created to guard this thing?" "Not exactly," Krell said. "The original plan was more elegant. Your ancestors were genetically modified to develop in a specific way. Your brains emit unique frequencies that help maintain the entity's sleep state." Lisa narrowed her eyes. "So we're what? Living sedatives for a cosmic monster?" "More like a living containment field," the ambassador corrected. "Your collective consciousness creates a barrier that the entity cannot easily penetrate." Sam laughed, without humor. "So that's why we're low threat, because we're already doing a job for you." "The classification serves a purpose," Krell said. "If other species knew the truth, they might seek to destroy Earth to eliminate the risk of the entity escaping, or worse, try to harness its power." Alan stepped back from the hologram, his mind racing. "This facility is monitoring the containment, isn't it? And something's changed." The ambassador nodded. "The entity follows a cycle. Every few thousand years, it stirs in its sleep, testing its prison. The facility was built to strengthen the containment during these periods, but something's different this time," Commander Ellis said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," the ambassador confirmed. "The awakening has come centuries too early, and the indicators suggest it will be stronger than previous cycles." Olivia had been studying the symbols on the walls. These readings show increasing seismic activity worldwide, minor tremors that seem random but follow a pattern. "The first signs of awakening," Krell agreed. "So what happens if this thing fully wakes up?" Lisa asked. The ambassador's expression grew grave. "If the entity escapes Earth, it will consume all life in this solar system before moving on to others. It feeds on consciousness itself. The more advanced the mind, the more satisfying the meal." A heavy silence fell over the group. Alan broke it first. "You said humans were engineered to help contain this thing. How exactly do we do that?" Krell gestured to another panel, which displayed waves of energy emanating from human population centers. Your brains produce specific patterns when active. These patterns, multiplied by billions, create a field that the entity finds disorienting. It cannot focus enough to break its physical bonds. That doesn't make sense, Sam objected. Human populations have varied throughout history. Sometimes, there were very few of us. The engineers built redundancies into the system, the ambassador explained. The facility contains amplifiers that strengthen the field when human populations are low, but as your numbers grew, the amplifiers were needed less. Until now, Olivia said, understanding dawning. The entity is getting stronger, isn't it? Yes, the ambassador confirmed. And we do not know why. Commander Ellis, ever practical, stepped forward. So what do? How do we stop this thing from waking up? The facility has protocols for strengthening the containment, Krell said. But they require direct human involvement. The system was designed that way. Only the Guardians can reinforce the prison. Why didn't you just tell us this from the beginning? Lisa demanded. Why all the secrecy and the low threat classification? The ambassador exchanged looks with Krell before answering. The truth is, Captain Morales, we were not certain you would help us. Why wouldn't we? Alan asked. This thing threatens our planet too. Because, Krell said softly, to truly strengthen the containment, the facility requires sacrifice. Before anyone could ask what he meant, the ground beneath them trembled. The holographic display flickered, showing the entity pulsing more rapidly. Another tremor? Olivia reported, checking her instruments. Magnitude 5.2, centered in the Pacific. They're getting stronger, the ambassador said. We have less time than I thought. Alan studied the facility controls. Despite their alien design, he could sense a pattern to them. These systems need human operation, you said. What exactly do they do? They amplify the containment field, Krell explained, using the combined mental energy of all humans, focused through this facility. But that would require global coordination, Commander Ellis objected. We can't exactly tell 7 billion people to think in unison. No, the ambassador agreed. But the facility can create a resonance effect. It needs only a few humans to establish the pattern, then it can spread that resonance globally. A few humans, Lisa repeated. You mean us? Yes, Krell said simply. The facility was designed to respond to those who discovered it. Sam, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. I've been analyzing these signals. They look familiar. He pulled up some data on his tablet. They're similar to human brain patterns during certain activities, particularly during intense creativity or problem solving. Alan's eyes widened as understanding dawned. That's it. The entity is contained by human consciousness, specifically the parts of our minds that make us uniquely human. Our creativity, Olivia said slowly, our ability to imagine, to solve problems, to think beyond immediate survival, the very qualities that make your species seem primitive to many in the Confederation, the ambassador admitted. Your emotional responses, your creativity, your unpredictability, these are the chains that bind the entity. Another tremor shook the facility, stronger than the last. Pieces of ice fell from the ceiling. We don't have much time, Commander Ellis said. What exactly do we need to do? The ambassador moved to the central pillar and placed his hand on a panel. The blue light shifted, revealing 5 alcoves arranged in a circle around the pillar. The original designers created this as a last resort, he explained. 5 humans must connect directly to the facility, combining their consciousness to reset the containment field. Connect how? Lisa asked suspiciously. The process is not without risk, Krell admitted. Your minds will temporarily link with the facility systems, and through them you will sense the entity itself. Will we survive? Olivia asked bluntly. The ambassador's silence was answer enough. No one spoke for several long moments. The gravity of their situation hung in the air like a physical weight. 5 alcoves, 5 humans. and no guarantee of survival. There must be another way, Alan said finally, breaking the silence. If there is, we do not know it, the ambassador replied. This facility was built millions of years ago. Much of its technology is beyond even our understanding. Lisa stepped forward, her military training taking over. We need more information before anyone gets into those alcoves. What exactly happens during this process? Krell moved to another panel and activated a sequence of symbols. The facility will create a direct link between your minds and its core systems. Through this link, you will help shape the containment field that keeps the entity dormant. And the risk? Commander Ellis asked. The human mind was not designed to perceive cosmic entities, the ambassador said carefully. The process could damage your consciousness permanently. Another tremor shook the facility, stronger than the previous ones. Larger chunks of ice fell from the ceiling. We need to contact the surface, Commander Ellis decided. Report what we've found and request guidance. There is no time, the ambassador warned. These tremors will grow stronger. If the entity fully awakens, no force in this solar system will be able to contain it again. Sam had been studying the facility's systems on his tablet. He looked up suddenly. I think there's a way to modify the connection, make it safer. How? Alan asked. The system is designed to create a direct neural link, Sam explained. But if we could buffer it somehow, create a filter between our minds and the facility, Olivia moved to his side looking at his findings. He's right. The interface is adaptable. We might be able to protect ourselves while still making the connection. Lisa turned to the aliens. Would that work? Possibly, Krell said after a moment's consideration. The system was designed to be used by humans after all. It may adapt to protect you. Alan made a decision. I'll go first. Test the modified connection. No, Lisa countered. I should do it. I have combat training. My mind is disciplined. This isn't about combat, Alan argued. It's about understanding the system. I've studied xenobiology my entire career. I'm the most prepared for this. Before they could debate further, the ground shook violently. The holographic display flickered wildly, showing the entity pulsing faster than ever. Magnitude 7.3, Olivia reported grimly, checking her instruments. Pacific region. Tsunami warnings in effect. The ambassador's communication device chimed. He checked it and his expression grew even more serious. Our main vessel reports similar seismic activity beginning worldwide. We are running out of time. We all go in together. Commander Ellis decided, taking charge. Sam, make your modifications quickly. The rest of us, prepare yourselves. Sam and Olivia worked frantically at the control panels, making adjustments to the interface. The aliens watched with what might have been surprise. Your species continues to impress us, Krell said quietly to Alan. Few would attempt to modify technology they barely understand. That's humanity for you, Alan replied. We're too stubborn to accept no-win scenarios. After 10 tense minutes, Sam stepped back from the controls. It's done. I've created a buffer system. It should filter the connection, protect our minds from direct contact. Should? Lisa asked. Sam gave a weak smile. Best I can do with million-year-old. Alien tech in 10 minutes. The 5 humans gathered around the central pillar. The alcoves glowed softly, waiting for them. What do we do once we're connected? Olivia asked. Focus your thoughts on Earth, the ambassador instructed. On humanity, on what makes your species unique. The facility will use those patterns to strengthen the containment. And if we sense the entity? Commander Ellis asked. The ambassador hesitated. Do not engage with it. Do not acknowledge it. It feeds on attention and consciousness. With nothing left to say, the 5 humans each stepped into an alcove. As soon as they were in position, transparent barriers formed around them, and the light from the central pillar intensified. Alan felt a tingling sensation spread from the back of his neck through his entire body. His vision blurred, then cleared, to reveal not the inside of the facility, but a vast abstract space filled with swirling patterns of light. Can everyone hear me? He called out, his voice sounding strange in this mental landscape. Yes, came the responses one by one. The others appeared as glowing human shapes in the space around him. "The buffer is working," Sam's form announced. "I can feel the system, but it's not overwhelming." "Where do we go now?" Lisa asked. As if in response to her question, a path of light formed in the space before them, leading toward a pulsing core of energy in the distance. "I think we follow." "That," Alan said. They moved forward together, their consciousnesses floating through the abstract space. As they drew closer to the core, Alan began to sense something else, a vast presence surrounding them, watching. "Do you feel that?" Olivia whispered. "Ignore it," Commander Ellis reminded them. The ambassador said not to engage with the entity. They continued forward, but the sense of being watched grew stronger. Alan could feel pressure against his mind, like something trying to look inside his thoughts. "It's scanning us," Sam realized, "trying to understand what we are." "Keep moving," Lisa urged. "Focus on the task." They reached the core, which now revealed itself as a complex nexus of energy patterns, the heart of the containment system. Alan could sense how it connected to billions of human minds across the planet, drawing on their collective consciousness to create a barrier around the entity. "It's beautiful," Olivia said in awe. "And it's failing," Sam noted, pointing to fractures appearing in the pattern. These must represent the weakening points in the containment. Alan understood instinctively what they needed to do. "We need to restore the pattern. Each of us takes a section and reinforces it." They spread out around the core, each focusing on a different segment of the containment field. Alan concentrated on the patterns of human creativity and imagination. The qualities the ambassador had mentioned were most effective at binding the entity. As they worked, Alan became aware of something massive shifting in the space beyond the containment. Something ancient and hungry, stirring from a long sleep. "It's becoming more active," Commander Ellis warned. "Work faster." Alan poured his consciousness into the pattern, thinking of humanity's greatest achievements: art, music, literature, science, all the ways humans had expressed their unique ability to create and imagine. The section of the field under his control began to strengthen, the fractures closing. Suddenly, he felt something reach directly for his mind, a tendril of awareness from beyond the containment. Images flooded his consciousness: stars dying, planets crumbling, entire civilizations screaming as they were consumed. "It's attacking," he shouted. "It's trying to break through Sam's buffer." "Ignore it," Lisa called back. "It's showing us what it wants, what it will do if it escapes. Don't let it distract you." Alan struggled to focus on his task as the entity continued its assault on his mind. Then he felt something unexpected: support from the others, their consciousnesses bolstering his own, helping him resist. "We're stronger together," Olivia realized. "Link your minds with mine." The 5 humans merged their consciousness more deeply, creating a unified field of human thought. Together, they pushed back against the entity's intrusion and redoubled their efforts on the containment pattern. The core began to pulse with renewed energy. The fractures in the pattern closed one by one. The entity's presence receded, forced back by their combined effort. "It's working," Sam exclaimed, as the final fractures sealed. The core flashed with brilliant light. The alien facility channeled their combined consciousness, amplified it, and broadcast it to every human mind on the planet, not controlling them, but resonating with the uniquely human qualities that maintained the containment. For a brief moment, Alan could sense the entirety of humanity, billions of minds, each unique, each contributing to the pattern that kept the entity imprisoned. It was overwhelming and beautiful. Then, abruptly, the connection ended. Alan found himself back in his physical body, stumbling out of the alcove as the transparent barrier dissolved. The other 4 humans emerged similarly, dazed but alive. "We did it," Olivia said weakly, leaning against the central pillar for support. The ambassador approached them, his expression showing what might have been respect. "You have succeeded. The containment has been restored to full strength." "For how long?" Commander Ellis asked, ever practical. "Years, perhaps decades," Krell answered. Longer than the entity's normal cycle would allow. But it will try again, Lisa said. It wasn't a question. Yes, the ambassador confirmed. The entity will never stop trying to escape. 3 days later, Alan sat in a conference room at the Pentagon. The table was filled with military leaders, scientists, and government officials from around the world. On a large screen at the front of the room, Ambassador Zixtal addressed the gathering from the alien vessel now in orbit around Earth. Revealed to world leaders. No, the ambassador confirmed. The entity will continue to test its prison. Each cycle may grow stronger. Alan watched the faces around the table. Some showed fear, others determination. The past few days had been a whirlwind of emergency meetings, classified briefings, and global coordination unlike anything in human history. So what is your recommendation? The Secretary General of the United Nations asked. The Confederation has protocols for situations like this, the ambassador said. When containment of an entity becomes unstable, the standard procedure is quarantine. Quarantine? General Martinez frowned. What exactly does that mean? We would establish a perimeter around your solar system, Krell explained, stepping into view beside the ambassador. No ships would be permitted to enter or leave. Earth would be isolated until... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Until the entity either breaks free or goes back to sleep. Lisa finished for him. She sat beside Alan, representing the military's scientific division. Yes, the ambassador said. It is the safest option for the rest of the galaxy. The room erupted in angry voices. Alan understood their reaction. After learning they were part of the galactic community, to be told they would now be cut off seemed like cruel punishment. There must be another way, Dr. Eric Winters said. The geologist had been studying Earth's core anomalies for decades without knowing their true cause. We've maintained the containment for thousands of years without even knowing about it. Now that we understand what's happening, we can do better. The ambassador's expression was hard to read, but his tone was sympathetic. Dr. Winters, this situation is unprecedented. No containment site has ever experienced early awakening cycles like this. The entity is growing stronger for reasons we don't understand. Sam, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. I think I might know why. All eyes turned to him. Sam cleared his throat, uncomfortable with the attention. When we were connected to the facility, I sensed something about the containment pattern, he explained. It's designed to use human consciousness, specifically our creativity, our emotions, our ability to imagine and solve problems. Yes, Krell confirmed. Those are the qualities that were enhanced in your species during your engineering. Well, those qualities have exploded in recent centuries, Sam continued. Our population has grown exponentially. Our creative output, art, music, literature, scientific innovation, has increased at an unprecedented rate. We're generating more of the exact patterns that strengthen the containment than ever before. But if those patterns strengthen the containment, why is the entity awakening early? Olivia asked. She sat across from Sam, representing the scientific community. Because it's aware of us now, Alan realized, the pieces falling into place. It senses the food source. The containment doesn't just keep it trapped, it keeps it from being aware of us. But with so many minds generating these patterns, it's like surrounding a sleeping predator with the smell of food, Commander Ellis added. Eventually, hunger will wake it no matter how deeply it's sleeping. The ambassador and Krell exchanged looks. This is a concerning theory, the ambassador admitted. But it gives us an idea, Lisa said, sitting forward. If human consciousness is both the lock and the key to this prison, we can use that. We just connected 5 minds to the facility and strengthened the containment. What if we could do more? What are you suggesting? General Martinez asked. A global consciousness initiative, Lisa said firmly. Not just 5 minds, but millions. Billions. How would that even work? Someone asked. Sam was already typing on his tablet. The facility has the technology to create a resonance pattern through all human minds. We experienced it firsthand. If we could replicate that technology, create a network of amplifiers around the planet, we could create a permanent strengthening of the containment field, Alan finished. Dr. Winters stood up. It's possible. The entity creates detectable, electromagnetic patterns. We could design systems to generate counter patterns amplified by human consciousness. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. This has never been attempted, he finally said. But it might work. The original engineers built the system to adapt and evolve alongside humanity. We'll need time to develop the technology, Olivia cautioned, and global cooperation, Commander Ellis added. Every nation would need to participate. We'll make it happen, the Secretary General said firmly. The alternative is unacceptable. Over the next 6 months, the world changed. The truth about Earth's cosmic purpose was carefully revealed to the public. Scientists from around the globe worked alongside Confederation advisors to develop what became known as the Resonance Network, a system of facilities built to amplify human consciousness and strengthen the entity's containment. The first test occurred exactly 6 months after the Arctic discovery. Alan stood with Lisa, Sam, Olivia, and Commander Ellis in a control room beneath a new facility built in the Rocky Mountains. Similar control rooms in Africa, Asia, Europe, and Australia were connected via video conference. Each continent had its own resonance amplifier, all linked to the original Arctic facility. All systems are ready, Sam reported. Resonance patterns, stable. Global participation at 93%, Olivia added, checking the data. All around the world, people were engaged in activities that produced the unique thought patterns that strengthened the containment. Creating art, solving problems, sharing stories, making music. It's working, Lisa said, watching the readings. The containment field is stronger than it's ever been. On the main screen, Ambassador Zixtal and the Confederation Council observed the proceedings from their vessel. Remarkable, the ambassador said. Your species continues to surprise us. Is it enough? Alan asked. Will the quarantine be lifted? The council members conferred briefly before the ambassador answered. The quarantine protocol is rescinded. Earth will be reclassified. As what? Commander Ellis asked. Not as a low threat environment, the ambassador said, but as something new in our records, a guardian world. General Martinez smiled. I like the sound of that better. There is more, the ambassador continued. The Confederation offers Earth full membership, effective immediately. Your unique abilities make you valuable allies. The control room erupted in cheers. Alan felt a hand on his shoulder and turned to see Lisa smiling at him. Not bad for a low-threat species, she said. We still have much to learn, Alan replied. The entity will never stop trying to escape. We'll need to remain vigilant. That's what humans do best, Sam said, joining them. We're stubborn that way. On the screen showing the Arctic facility, the ancient control room glowed with new energy. The holographic display showed Earth's core, where the entity now lay surrounded by layers of human-generated containment fields, sleeping once again but more securely than ever before. And in the vast reaches of space, word spread quickly through the Galactic Confederation. Earth was no longer classified as low threat. It was now known by a term that made other species approach with caution and respect, the Warden world. The species that had been engineered as unknowing jailers had become conscious guardians, and the universe would never see humanity the same way again.